Grüß Gott. Welcome back to the course on design of information systems. One of the topics for today is that we are going to go into some more details of our example model for a social network. Details, that means we are going on the one hand to see some more features and options that are available for animating and for documentation of a model. And details, on the other hand, means that we are going to take the social network model and look into particular details and build there some variations for things that are already there, some variations that should explain that there is always sort of an alternative to realize some ideas, some aspects of a model. Okay, so basically two parts, the animation and the documentation part, and then the sort of variation part, both explained in terms of the social network model. So, to remind you, our social network model, our main description means for describing the social network was a class diagram. In the class diagram we have particular classes, we have the class profile, and we have the class friendship, and these are the two classes that we will deal with in the first part, in the animation and documentation part. The profile class is useful for representing profile objects, person objects in the social networks and these profile objects. The profiles can be engaged in friendships. They can be engaged in friendships in different roles, namely in the role of the inviter and in the role of the invitee. And the friendship can be in different stati. Each friendship can have a different status according to the operations that we see over here and that have to do with the friendship. The operations that have to do with the friendship are the operation invite, accept, and decline. According to this, a friendship can be in a status pending when the invite has been made, and when the accept on the other side is done, then the status switches into accepted, and symmetrically, when a decline is made for a friendship, the status switches to declined. And this is the part we are going to focus on in the animation documentation part of the lecture. Okay, animation and documentation of a simple scenario. The scenario that we are going to look at is quite simple in comparison to what we have seen as sequence diagrams, as command line sequences, as operation calls in a communication diagram prior. This scenario consists only of the creation of two profile objects and the establishment of a friendship association link between these two profiles. The UML diagrams that I'm going to use for the animation, for the documentation, are the object diagram, the state chart diagram, the sequence diagram, and the communication diagram. Object diagram for displaying the state of affairs, referring to a particular class diagram, but we will have a sequence of object diagrams. The state chart diagram is used in the model in general to describe the effects and the order of operations, and a concrete order, concrete sequence of operations, operation calls, actions can be represented in a sequence diagram and in a communication diagram together. Another option in use to represent commands are command lists. And you see here in blue, this is a general, what I've explained here is a general frame for the sort of animation and documentation. And what you see here in blue are the 4 options that I'm going to use for animation. So in the first option, I will choose the state chart diagrams to explain a dynamic behavior, and I will use the state chart diagrams together with object diagrams and the use command list. In the second option, I will go for the sequence diagram together with the use command list. In the third option, I'm going to apply the communication diagrams, again together with the use command list. And in the last and fourth options, so these 3 options, basically you can say here they focus on state chart diagram, sequence diagram, communication diagram, and in the last and fourth option I will not use diagrams at all to document, to animate dynamic behavior, but I will use the use shell, and I will explain, document, animate the behavior with OCL queries on the use shell. So these are the 4 options we are going to study. Let's go for the first option over here. Yeah, that's the state chart diagrams together with the object diagrams and the use command list. And here you see the starting point. We already see here an object diagram which shows 2 profile objects. So yeah, I have instantiated here 2 objects for class profile, and in the course of the dynamic behavior, in course of the animation, we will have just one additional friendship object which will come into the animation. So here we had in the object diagram 2 profiles, the Merkel object and the Putin object, and you see here the objects have been created. You see the command list that was responsible for creating this object diagram. We have a new profile object with a particular identity here in front of the colon. The colon is between the Merkel and the profile, and we have here the object identity as a parameter to calling profile, that's the name of the class, as a sort of constructor. New profile objects implicitly, and please call the profile object Merkel, and analogously we have here a second profile object which is called Putin. The according to the init specifications in the use file, the attributes, the string valued object, the string valued attributes, first name, last name, username, are set to the empty string, and this is a derived attribute, and it takes the values from a calculation here from first name and last name, and the calculation here yields also the empty string. And the initial state, here we see the current state of the state chart, which is associated with profile, with a profile class or with profile objects. And yeah, we see here these state charts or the state machines in form of two diagrams, and these two diagrams are not associated with the class. These diagrams are associated with the objects. This state machine is associated with the Merkel object, and this state machine is associated with the Putin object. And here we see now, after the create has been issued, the state is, the object, the Merkel object is in state born. That's the current state is always displayed here in green. And we see that the state invariant, which was associated with the state born, is fulfilled, namely the attribute value of username is equal to the empty string. And this, both objects, Merkel and Putin, are in state born, and in both objects the state invariant is valid. So this was the elements from the command list that have been issued and have been executed. It's this combined statement here where two new profile objects are created. And now we go one step further in the scenario. We have seen here another operation that has been issued now. And as you please notice here, or please pay attention to the attributes here of Merkel and pay attention to this transition here. I go back one step again. So that was the previous state of the animation, and now I jump into the next state. The attributes have been changed, and there was a state transition taking place here. So I've issued the init operation on the object Merkel, and the parameters were first name, last name, and the username, and the attributes are modified accordingly, and the derived attribute has now been calculated. The derived attribute takes the first letter from the first name and the first letter from the last name, concatenates these two letters, and builds here the initials. And as an effect of issuing here the init command, the state transition has been taken. The object Merkel has changed the state from born to living, and this is also reflected here in the object diagram. The state of the state chart has changed from previously born to living here. So by previous state, last state, in quotes, a lot of things have been changing here. The attributes, the state over here, the transition, and with this state, another object, another operation has been issued here. So a lot of things have been going on. Analogously, as a third command, we will now initialize the Putin object. Putin, first name Vladimir, second name or family name Putin, the nickname or the username grep. So these attributes have changed. the state chart has changed. The state chart, state machine state has changed from born to living, analogously to what we saw previously. And the command number 4 that is issued now, okay, again we see in quotes a lot of things go on here, from only having 3 commands and then having issued the 4th command. Putin invites Merkel to become a friend. This is reflected here in that a new state machine shows up, because in the implementation here a new friendship object is created. Friendship object, a friendship object that is, we see the friendship object over here in the object diagram. The friendship object is connected to Putin as in the role of inviter, and the friendship object is connected to Merkel in the role invitee. The state of the friendship object is pending, and this is sort of duplicated here, because we have in the friendship class we have a string valued attribute status, which takes the attribute which take as attribute values pending, accepted, declined, in form of a string. And we have, in addition, we have the state from the state machine, and this is sort of redundant. We will come to this point later when we see the variations for the social network model. We will discuss this in some more detail there, certain aspects. So let's just consider it as a sort of redundant description for the state of a friendship. Namely, the state is recorded in form of a string valued attribute and in form of the state machine. The create, which is part of the implementation of the invite operation here, the create makes the object go from the prenatal state. We have had prenatal states in the other object as well. This is just a name for the initial state, and my convention is that I call it prenatal, before birth. So you will, but you will never see an object which is where the prenatal state is green here. When the object comes into existence, before it was in state prenatal, and when it comes into existence, when it is created, it will jump directly into the state pending here. So the friendship is pending. Basically, the friendship is waiting for an answer from the invitee, from the profile that has been receiving the invitation. So when we jump back to the class diagram, we have been issuing here the invite, and now sort of the friendship is now waiting on the other side that the accept is issued or the decline is issued. So that was the invite. Yes, and as a last step, we see the operation number. We expect here the operation number 5. Let me point to one thing here. Number 4 here is the invite. The invite also happens, sort of happens here in one of these state machines for the profile objects. The invite, as we see now, I do it again here, the invite happens on the Putin object. So what we have seen here, that's the state chart for the invite. So from previous state, from this state to this state of affairs, there was a state transition, namely a state transition in the state machine for Putin. Here, the state machine for Putin took the transition. Here you see the invite, and the transition led from living to living. By the way, yeah, the username now, the invariant for this state says the username is not allowed to be the empty string, and as we see here, both usernames in the objects that we have are not equal to the empty string. So this transition, there was a transition taken here in with the fourth command, and that was a transition that jumps from living to living here. The last step in the animation is now that Merkel accepts Putin, and as you might have noticed, something is was happening in the object diagram, and something was happening in the state machine. Let's do it again. So when I issue here the fifth command, then we see that the status of the friendship changes from pending to accepted, and also we see this change here in the state machine for the friendship, which jumps from pending to accepted. And let's do it again. That's the accept here, and this accept here on the Merkel is a state transition, transition in the state machine for Merkel, and that was here the accept, which leads from living to living in the Merkel state machine. And so we have here also a change which we didn't see because well, we have been going from living to living, and therefore there is no change in color, as we have seen it here from pending to accepted. The accepted now is the green state, and the state in the object diagram, and the state in the object that is associated with the friendship, with the proper friendship object, has also changed. So you see here in the state, you see here the fact that the state machines here are not connected with the classes, but are connected with the objects. You see it here in the top part. This is the state machine for Merkel, this is the state machine for Putin, and this is the state machine for friendship 1. Friendship 1 is exactly here the identity of this friendship object.